Yeah.
We're live in 3, 2.
And we are live, baby. Welcome in to Leather Brains. As always, your host, Slapdog. And do we have a fun-filled episode for all you brainiacs out there today? We are going to be talking about Deandre Hopkins, some Dalvin Cook conversation, some Isaiah Rodgers no longer being able to play football conversation. But the meat of our episode, we're going to be doing a Dynasty startup mock draft. So for all of you out there that are considering doing and joining a Dynasty league, I think this episode is going to be very, very helpful for you guys. And even for those that are already in a Dynasty league, I think this is still a really fun episode to kind of see where current players are going right now, because if you've been in a Dynasty league for a while, obviously you're not redrafting these players year over year. So it'll be kind of fun to look at the ADPs of where players are currently going, maybe where you drafted them at the time. And so we're going to be doing that, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun and helpful as well. But I can't do this alone. I absolutely cannot do this episode alone. So today I have both Scotty and Yeti here with me. Gentlemen, how are you both doing?
Yo, back-to-back weeks with Scotty on. Shit.
Scott, how is he, bro?
It's crazy.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Normally, I'm just
Beautiful
a
thing,
lazy
man.
pile, and all I do is sit around and do nothing and wallow in my self-pity.
Oh,
my
yeah.
God.
Our
Are you okay?
Brainiacs know that,
Yeah,
man.
I'm great now that I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad
Satch is
to...
looking good, though.
Oh yeah, we got to address the get up. You're wearing a captain's hat, like a
I
stripper.
am, yes. Well, I might strip by the end of the episode. For those watching, I think they might get kind of excited about that.
I am.
Yikes.
I feel as if I'm the captain of this show, and I'm gonna steer us in the right direction on this ship that we are on. But more importantly, I'm going on a cruise next week, so I figured why not break out the attire just a week early. I will not be around next week for all the brainiacs that are used to listening to my disgusting, gritty voice. It's not gonna be here, so I'm going to leave it up to you two gentlemen and potentially Alan to be a part of that, but I will not be around. So I figured I want to wear this. I like this outfit, and it's kind of fun. Why not bring it out? So that's kind of what I did here. Gentlemen, are we ready to just get down to business?
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
Okay.
Hey, boys, let's get down to business.
First piece of news. Let's just talk about it. I'm getting kind of frustrated with it just a little bit. We're going to talk about Dalvin Cook. He received an offer from the Miami Dolphins. The parameters of the deal were not disclosed, but there is mutual interest here. I don't like this landing spot for fantasy purposes. I think it really muddies up this backfield even more. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think it's kind of gross.
Yeah, I mean, I think Miami is probably one of the worst landing spots for Dalvin Cook, considering they already have Raheem Mostert and then Jeff Wilson Jr., obviously. These guys signed 2-year deals this offseason, so it's not like they're going anywhere. I do think their contracts are team-friendly, but still, it's like, why would you add Dalvin Cook when you already have those two backs? Now, as far as usage goes for Dalvin Cook, if he were to land with Miami, we're looking at a true split backfield amongst these three running backs. I think Dalvin Cook he's easily the best running back of the three, but for consistency, I think Cook is going to fall out of that RB1 range that we're used to seeing him in.
Yeah, and I think truthfully that pretty much no matter where he landed, he was going to be in a committee of some form or another. So I don't know that anyone was going to expect him to leave and be a solid RB1 somewhere. But what this really does is makes me sad for Devin Achane, because I was really hoping he would have an opportunity to kind of work his way into the lineup.
I was always saying Arcane.
I don't think there's an R in it. It's just Achane.
Is it?
Yeah. But
Okay.
I was really hoping he'd have an opportunity to work his way into this rotation and maybe start to take over. A lot of the beat reporters are coming out saying that he's impressing people, in the offseason. But now it seems like if this happens, that is far into the future.
I mean, is there a spot that would make you guys excited about, or like a Dalvin Cook signing? Like maybe the Cowboys with Tony Pollard potentially not being ready week 1. Like they could kind of have a split backfield like him and Zeke did last year. Would the Cowboys suffice, or is there anywhere else that you could see him having a complementary role that's still fantasy relevant for himself?
In my mind, the only team that really needs a running back right now where Dalvin Cook can be I would say a top 15 running back would be with Denver. And I say that just because Javonte Williams, we don't know if he's going to be healthy for the start of the season because he's coming off of a completely torn knee, basically. They do have some RJP Ryan in Denver as a backup, but I think Dalvin Cook could easily see the early down work, and we've also seen his upside with receiving. So he's an every down back, right? I've seen rumors of him going to the Patriots, but again, I don't know how much I like that just because we have Stevenson there already.
What about the Rams?
The Rams would be interesting, but you also have Cam Akers. And I think we're going to start. I mean, we could say that about every team. They already have a running back. So it feels like no matter where Dalvin Cook goes right now, there's already an established RB1. I think the best case scenario for Dalvin Cook is he holds out until the season starts and he hopes for somebody to get hurt and he gets paid to be a RB1 in that offense.
Do you think there's any concern? And not that I disagree with that statement, but there's still some big name aging running backs out there that are currently they're free agents. You have Kareem Hunt, you have Zeke, of course, Leonard Fournette, and now Dalvin Cook. They're all, they were all big name running backs just a couple years ago, and they were very sought after, and now they're just sitting on free agency. So does that muddy up the water for any of these guys? I mean, they're all, even last year, most of them were still usable running backs to some degree, and now they're just sitting there. So does that leave any concern for you as far as, but one of them is probably hoping that a running back gets hurt so they can go join that team. But realistically, there's a couple different options. So even from a financial standpoint, can't these teams just say, we'll take the cheapest one out of all you guys and deal with it, depending on price, of course, because they're all kind of within that same wheelhouse to some pedigree.
Sure, I could see that, right? But I don't think any of the running backs equal what Dalvin Cook can do on the field. You could argue that Kareem Hunt probably is the closest because he doesn't have as much tread on his tires sitting behind Nick Chubb for the past couple of years. So I could see Kareem Hunt and Dalvin Cook getting similar contracts. But at this point, I would say all these veteran running backs are looking at 1 year, I think 2 year max contracts with minimal guaranteed money.
Yeah, it's just the way that the market is for running backs right now. I mean, you just can't expect anything better than that. And like Diddy said, I mean, all of these teams pretty much have established backfield. So pretty much any one of those guys are just going to ruin fantasy hopes and not make fantasy hopes.
Do you think that moving forward in years to come, and we're already starting to see that, like you mentioned, Scotty, where these running backs the market is not there for them. Do we think that running backs are going to become a dime a dozen for a lot of NFL teams and they're not going to get paid the money that they feel that they deserve?
I don't know, because the thing is that it's hard to blame the league. I mean, you've seen a couple pieces being released now by different publications saying that, it's not fair the way running backs are being treated. But, is it not fair? Because the league is obviously moving in a pass-friendly direction. And on top of that, just with the wear that running backs take, their shelf life being so short, it's hard to justify paying them huge sums of money, because then you end up like the Dallas Cowboys with Zeke. I mean, you just get stuck in these bad positions and the running back ages out of their contract before it's over. So it's hard to blame the league. It seems like as long as we're doing this air raid style of football all around the league, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to spend a huge amount of money on a running back.
So do you think that even like your big names, like your McCaffreys or your John Taylors, like a Breece Hall would probably be a conversational piece for this as well? Like they're going to start getting phased out from a financial standpoint. Is that something you're nodding your head? Yes, Yeti. So you kind of think that might be the case?
I'm starting to think that rookie running backs that are in this generational talent pool that we're talking about, like Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan even, I'll throw him in that category now. I think we're going to see these guys get the most money from their rookie contracts. I don't think beyond their rookie contracts that they're going to see as much guaranteed money going forward, just because of the way that the free agency is looking now, the way offenses are looking now, teams are figuring out. Look at the Chiefs. Teams are figuring out that they don't have to spend $10 to $15 million on running backs anymore. They can go get a guy in the 7th round and be productive, or they can get a cheap guy in the free agency for $1 million to go catch passes out of the backfield. So I'm starting to think that rookie contracts are going to be the top 4 running backs going forward, and then beyond that, it's hard to see like $15 million guaranteed every year, like Christian McCaffrey's getting.
Well, and the longer that these big name running backs sit in free agency, the worse it's going to get for the running back situation as a whole, because now you see, okay, these guys who are talented, who are very talented and can make a big impact on the football field, teams still aren't paying the money for them. So it's only going to get worse from here. And you also have to think that the running back position is, at least this applies to the running back more than any other position, that you almost expect them to come into the league and slowly get worse. Whereas as the wide receiver, you say, okay, well, they have to build a relationship with the quarterback and they have to kind of work their way into a good situation on the field. But the running back, they come in at peak athleticism and it declines from there. So I agree with Yeti 100%. I think this is just going to be the new norm for the foreseeable future.
What does this do for fantasy purposes? I know we can move on from this, but I think it is a really interesting conversational topic. It makes it that much more difficult for fantasy football. Do you think that eventually some leagues might even cut out the RB2 and just maybe put an additional flex position in just to kind of help transition that, because running backs are becoming that much harder to try and get the good ones and there's less of them? Or do you think that, it makes it that much more valuable for fantasy football?
I think RB2s need to stay in fantasy just because every week is a gamble with fantasy. If I think the tight end position is a big gamble every week too. If you're not locking down the top 2 guys in Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, like every week you're looking at what the fuck should I do? And I think that's kind of how RB2s can be looked going forward. Just because we are starting to see the cowbell running backs diminish very quickly in the NFL, or we're seeing guys like Austin Eckler, they kind of save their legs for later on in the season, so they're not as productive for the first 8 weeks of the season because they're resting, right? So it's almost like you just need to draft solid offenses that are going to get in the red zone more often. You need to get those committee running backs on those offenses to solidify your RB2 role if you're not able to lock down a guy like Christian McCaffrey or Bijan early on.
Okay. Breece Hall. He's not guaranteed to play week 1 per Ian Rappaport. Are we surprised by this? Are we concerned by this? Do we think that this is something that we need to keep very close attention to, or are we kind of just, it's still early and we don't need to hit the alarm button yet?
I think you need to approach the season as though Breece Hall is going to miss several games, but the good thing is that Breece Hall will be worth it. This is going to be an explosive offense that's going to have a lot of scoring opportunities. You want to have him on your roster, so he's worth the wait. But I do think you have to go in and maybe drop him a couple spots in your rankings, just because I don't think he's going to be there for the first few weeks. But he's going to be worth it. I mean, I'm not shying away from him by any means.
Yeah, you're muted.
Whoops, sorry.
But your mouth was moving. It was beautiful.
Yeah, thanks, man. I was trying to say that Breece Hall currently in best ball leagues, he is the 12th running back off the board. So he's going behind guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Najee, and Derrick Henry. I still think right now I want those 3 guys over Breece Hall. And I would even argue I'd be happy getting ETN over Breece Hall and probably Jahmyr Gibbs over Breece Hall at this point.
See, that's where I might draw the line. I think Gibbs just scares me because I think it's going to be, Montgomery might have a Williams-esque role. Is it concerning that even with Hall in this offense, I mean, obviously we were just talking about running backs ad nauseum. This is a high-powered offense, or should be. On paper, there's a lot of weapons on this offense. Are we concerned that there's a lot of mouths to feed and that could cut into Breece Hall's efficiency from a fantasy perspective?
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm fading Breece Hall at his current ADP, and even going into the season, I don't want to touch Breece Hall. I think that this offense is going to look a lot different than it did last year because there are more mouths to feed, like you had mentioned. But it's also worth noting that Breece Hall is coming off an ACL surgery. When was the last time we saw a running back produce off of a torn ACL right after a season after?
And you bringing up that point, I was going to bring up J.K. Dobbins as somebody that we saw last year. You know, a lot of people were excited about his return, took him at a decent ADP, didn't really hit much momentum. Towards the end of the season, he did, right? But previous to that, he didn't. And so you bring up a wonderful point. You know, you look at these running backs that have had leg injuries and then they come back, and typically they're pretty slow to get back up on the horse and start riding again. So I agree. I think for dynasty purposes, I'm not super concerned. Obviously, I think Hall's still one of those top tier running back owns, but from a redraft perspective, I tend to agree with you. I think that there is some reason to be slightly alarmed about that.
I think that the scoring opportunity that he should have mitigates a lot of those concerns for me. Assuming that this offense comes out and performs like we hope they do. I mean, I'm sort of getting Broncos vibes nowadays, like with this team, that you have this, you know, this solid quarterback supposedly coming in and they're going to be an explosive offense and a Super Bowl contender, and you just don't know how it's going to work out. And we saw how bad that can turn out. But assuming this offense comes in and performs like we hope, I just think, you know, you have an offense now with a bunch of weapons. You have a solid quarterback in the backfield. They're not going to have to rely on Breece Hall like they did J.K. Dobbins when he came back. This is not a run-first offense. So I think they're going to throw the ball a lot. They're going to get in the red zone a lot. He has a lot of scoring opportunities. So I'm not shying away from him at all. I do think that everyone you mentioned, Yeti, I agree with you. I'd probably take over him. So like I said, drop him a little bit in the rankings just because of the injury and because of the mouths to feed. But ultimately, if he's on my roster, I'm not going to be upset about it.
I do think it's worth noting just one more thing about this whole Jets running back situation, that Zonovan Knight and Michael Carter are the backups for Breece Hall. So if you do draft Breece Hall in a redraft format, I would look to handcuff yourself with one of those guys. Even in Dynasty, if either one of those guys are floating around, they should be serviceable for the first couple of weeks of the season.
Okay, next running back on the docket is Josh Jacobs. There could be a holdout, Yeti. Your man over there for the Raiders. Week 1 could be a holdout if a long-term deal is not reached. You think that there's a chance he could actually hold out?
I think so, man. From everything that I've read about this situation, the Raiders aren't willing to negotiate a long-term deal with a lot of guaranteed money, or not even a lot of guaranteed money, but it's a matter of the years on the contract for Josh Jacobs. He wants the comfort of being on the Raiders for a long period of time, whether that's 4 years. I don't know exactly what the years are, but he's looking for a long-term, like this is it type of contract for him. All accounts are he doesn't want to leave the Raiders, but if he can't come to that deal, he's gone. So I'm not surprised I wouldn't be surprised, I should say, if he holds out.
I just don't understand what leverage he has. This is a team that's looking to rebuild here in the near future anyway. It's not like they want to spend a bunch of money or lock somebody into a long-term deal. And if he goes into free agency, like we already talked about, the running back situation is a mess. Who's going to spend big money or give him a big contract to come be in a committee in their backfield? I just don't see it happening at his age. It seems like he has no leverage. I think he should take what he can get.
Is Zamir White a potential roster hold for those that are playing Dynasty?
Yeah, definitely. I think Zamir goes into the early down roles of the short yardage guy as well for the Raiders. But for third down, we're looking at Amir Abdullah and Brandon Bolden taking over the pass catching work for Josh Jacobs, who's a do-it-all back for the Raiders right now. But Zamir would be the guy to own in this offense moving forward.
Okay. I don't know. The Raiders aren't on a good trajectory. Right. I mean, and I mean, no disrespect, Yeti. You're a Raiders homer, but we know what the Raiders are. I mean, Jimmy G, or Jim, as we're calling him, Jim Garoppolo, is not going to be getting it done. Right. And we know what he is. He's never, ever supported a wide receiver one, like you mentioned in one of your threads last week on Twitter. He has never supported a wide receiver one except Deebo Samuel, and that was the year that Deebo Samuel cracked top 10 solely because of his rushing upside. So this is very alarming. I'm interested to see how this progresses for Devontae Adams, because he is arguably the smoothest route runner in the NFL, but he's getting older too, right? So you look at this team, you look at kind of where they're going. I think from a team perspective, it probably makes sense not to try and sign Josh Jacobs to a long-term deal. Like, if you look at this team, you're going to be going under a rebuild. Like, that is where this team is headed. And so you don't want to lock up one of these aging running backs that we just talked about to a long-term deal, because what are you going to get in return for him? Especially when you don't know what your team's going to look like in the next 2 years. So that's my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I understand he wants to get paid, but what's this team from a team perspective? They probably know that they're not in a good spot.
Everybody on the outside of the Raiders front organization knows that they're under a rebuild, or they should be trending that way. But if you look at the signings that the Raiders had in the offseason, they seem to think otherwise. They seem to think that they have a team that can do something. Obviously, we look at it, everybody looks at it like, what the fuck are you doing? Which is how I see it too. I see that the Raiders should be going under a rebuild. The signings tell me differently. And if that's the case, then it doesn't make sense why they are holding out on Josh Jacobs. Because if they truly think they are a legitimate team, I'm not saying I believe that, but the front office is, Josh Jacobs is your guy on that offense. He is the whole offense, and he has been for the past 4 seasons. So you sign him, you lock him down.
I think they probably also know what they have, and that's kind of my indication with the fact that they haven't signed him, because Josh Jacobs is a great running back. I mean, he was a focal point in your guys' offense last year, so it's not like he's some schmuck that just wants to get paid. He is a top tier athletic running back, but they don't want to sign him because they have a lot of problems that are about to hit the fan here, and Josh Jacobs is probably small potatoes from a big picture perspective. So Isaiah Pacheco, another running back. The Chiefs hope that Isaiah Pacheco will be ready to return by the middle of training camp, according to Nate Taylor from The Athletic. Pacheco continues to rehab from off-season surgeries to repair a torn labrum and a broken bone in his hand, probably because he runs like an absolute madman, and he just smashes himself into cement walls over and over again. As our Chiefs fan, Scotty, you concerned? Isaiah Pacheco is concerning?
I think it's been clear since the first time we saw him run. He's a very exciting runner. We love him. We love the heart as Chiefs Nation. You know, everyone hopes for the best.
Kingdom.
But yeah, whatever. Chiefs Kingdom, all of it. But I think the fact is that the way he runs, with how physical he is and his size, he's not going to have a real long career as a bell cow. That's just not in the cards for him. So I think they try and keep him as healthy for as long as possible. If he gets injured, maybe they look at signing one of those free agent running backs just to get us through the season. But ultimately we're just hoping for the best, but we understand the situation that Isaiah Pacheco is not going to be a long-term option for the Chiefs. I think he's going to finish out his rookie contract and end up somewhere else.
I mean, from a fantasy perspective this year, is he appealing because J.D. McKissick is still back with him, or J.D. McKinnon, excuse me, is still back with the Chiefs. He was usable last year in a lot of the passing down work, and Pacheco saw more of the groundwork. So do you guys expect that we're going to see a lot of that again this year? Given that Pacheco's healthy, of course.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the only Chiefs piece that we can consistently rely on is Kelsey in that offense, because 1 week McKinnon's going to go off and the next week Pacheco's going to go off. They're just going to take turns.
I tend to agree. And I think that's one of the, I owned Isaiah Pacheco in Dynasty and I sold him off for that reason, is because it's feast or famine with a Chiefs player every week. And I didn't want to be stuck holding the smoking gun there. So I agree. I think from a running back perspective, he's fun. I love to watch him. Like you mentioned, Scotty, I think he takes bath salts and cocaine, and then he puts his helmet on and goes out there, and it's electric, but I don't know if it's sustainable for himself. So hope he's back, hope he gets healthy, but currently he is still rehabbing. So
in a dynasty note, Deneric Prince is a undrafted running back that the Chiefs picked up this offseason. He's been kind of flashy in training camp so far for the Chiefs. So if you have a roster spot, I'm not saying go drop people for him, but he could be worth rostering if there's further issues with Pacheco.
I like that take a lot. Wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins has received contract offers from the Titans and the Patriots, according to ESPN's Diana Rossini. Hopkins representatives are hoping more teams show interest in him before he decides to sign with a team. Of course, the Titans want him. What do you mean?
So, like, his team is hoping that more teams show interest in him. Like, is he not happy with the first teams? That's like,
would you be if you wanted to get a ring and you were DeAndre Hopkins' age? Would you be? Do you think either of those teams are contenders for the Super Bowl? That's where he's at. He wants to go to a Super Bowl contending. Why would you not? I mean, he's getting old. He's not got a lot of tread left on the tires. He wants to go play for somewhere that he can get a ring at. I don't think he thinks that the Patriots or the Titans are going to be those teams. I don't think those are going to be the teams either.
I think he's just going to have to cut back on his expectations one way or another, because he can't be signed to a relatively long-term deal. He can't make a bunch of money and go to a Super Bowl team that already has a bunch of weapons and contracts or paychecks to send out. So he's got to start making compromises here. And I personally think he ends up with the Patriots. I think that's the way it's trending. Obviously, he wants to work with Belichick. I think that makes the most sense. But obviously, the odds of him getting a ring there are basically zero.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole conversation to be had about Mac Jones versus Bailey Zappi, and like they're saying Mac Jones is a quarterback, but there's been a lot of controversy even in the middle of last year. There was a lot of murmurs about what's going on there. So that's a problem in and of itself. The Titans also don't really have a quarterback, right? They've got Will Levis, they've got Ryan Tannehill, and they have help me out here.
Will Levis,
Malik Willis. Thank you. So, I mean, they got these three different quarterbacks, probably going to be Tannehill, but we don't know. And so there's a lot of controversy going on there. The Titans, I hope he doesn't land there for fantasy purposes, but with the same respect, A.J. Brown was certainly useful when he was there. He was the only real wide receiver, but now they have Treylon Burks, who I think is kind of a buy low prospect that we've kind of discussed a little bit, but I don't know, man. I think that, like you said, Scotty, I think he has to really temper his expectations moving forward. Do you want money? Do you want a ring? Do you want to stay in the league for a while? Because all of these are factors that are going to be heavily weighed when you're, if you're going to take $1 million, you could probably go to any NFL team, right? Any NFL team will do it for that. So how much do you want to get paid versus how much do you want that ring? And I think that's kind of where he needs to figure out those priorities. So last piece of news here. This news came out today. Isaiah Rodgers, he's a kick returner for the Colts. He was suspended for 1 year due to gambling violations. So not surprised by that. I've stated my opinions on this before. I think that there is no room for this in the NFL, and they should not be allowed to play. They should be banned from playing in the NFL, period. I don't think they should serve a suspension. That might be a little mean to say, or that might be a little extreme, but I don't think there's any room. If you're going to bet on NFL games while you're playing in them, I don't think there's any room for it. So congrats on getting away what I believe to be very easy, because I would have liked to see a much more severe suspension personally. So is that it? You guys have anything to add on any of that, or anything else that you'd like to talk news for before we get into this mock draft?
If you're an NFL player and you're rich, stop gambling.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Like Quintez Cephas, he was one of the Lions players that got caught gambling. He was suspended for a year, and then he was cut from the Lions. Like, why would you do that? Hopefully you literally ruined your entire career, because now a team's going to be like, oh, I mean, Quintez Cephas wasn't anything crazy. Like, he might get signed somewhere, but like, why would you do? It's so stupid, man. Like, it makes me mad. I don't understand why somebody would do that. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and move over to our Dynasty mock draft startup. So let's bust, baby.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
So this is a super flex, gentlemen. I know that you guys are we're doing this together, but this is a super flex league. So for those that are not watching, it's 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 2 flex positions, a tight end position. Of course, your super flex, and then we have 2 bench spots. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Scotty, you have the 3rd overall pick. Okay, so the first 2 players off the board are Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, and you, my friend, are on the clock.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with good old Joey B here. Obviously, Josh Allen was still on the board for me as well. I'm going with Joey B because I think his long-term usefulness is going to outlast Josh Allen just given their play style. So I think Joey B is going to be a good long-term option. I'm happy with it.
Okay. You took Joe Burrow. Justin Herbert is next, and now I am on the clock with the 5th overall pick. Josh Allen's still here. And, I think that's a good value for me. I really wanted to take a wide receiver there, but you can't pass up on a top-tier quarterback like Josh Allen, so I think I'm going to take him. I do that. Jamar Chase is off the board, and Justin Jefferson goes right after. Yeti, it's to you. You have the 8th overall pick, my friend, and are on the clock.
All right. So I'm looking at the board here, and Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback available. I'm a big believer in Lamar Jackson this year, and I like that he has a comfort
Pull the
with
trigger,
the contract. Bro. Yep, I'm going Lamar here with the 8th pick.
I hope he doesn't tear his shoulder off immediately.
Yeah, that'd be really unfortunate. Justin Fields goes afterward, and CD Lamb. We're now in the 2nd round, where Trevor Lawrence goes first in the 2nd round. And then we see Bijan Robinson, first running back off the board at the 202, meaning Yeti, you were back on the clock, my friend.
All right. So in my opinion, you need to get a top wide receiver early because top wide receivers hold their value longer, and it's a PPR league, obviously. Best available wide receiver at this current juncture is A.J. Brown, who I happen to love here with Jalen Hurts. So I'm going with A.J. Brown as my wide receiver 1.
I dig it. We have the 2nd running back off the board right after that at Christian McCaffrey, and Garrett Wilson goes after. I'm on the clock. Anthony Richardson is the best ADP, but I don't know if I'm buying that. There's still a lot of concerns for me there. Obviously, quarterbacks in a super flex league are one of the most valuable positions. Anthony Richardson is he is unproven, and there's a lot of concerns there. I'm going to have to go with the Yeti mantra there with the wide receivers. I think I'm just going to go ahead and take Amon-Ra St. Brown because he is a top-tier wide receiver, and they hold their value really well. So right after that, Richardson does go off the board, and Scotty, it's back to you, my friend.
Yeah, I got Breece Hall as recommended here as the best ADP option, but I just don't think taking a running back here is the wise move. I think, like Yeti said, you want to try and secure these wide receivers while you can because they're going to be on your team for a long time. And I got a young one staring me right in the face here. I'm going to go ahead and pick Jalen Waddle. I think that Tyreek Hill's obviously time is limited, so Jalen Waddle's going to step into hopefully a wide receiver 1 role, whether it's there or somewhere else down the line. So I think it's a good pick.
Okay, you're back on the clock. Breece Hall and John Taylor both went. Kelsey and Watson being Deshaun Watson, and it is back to you, Scott.
Oh, man, now I can really lock in somebody. But I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and go for somebody a little bit younger. And I'm going to go ahead and bet on the future of Jahmyr Gibbs.
Not a bad pick. Saquon Barkley goes after that, and it is back to me. I could go with the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs stack, which is really, really appealing, but this is Dynasty, right? And so you have to take into account age and contract. There is a little bit of controversy going on with Stephon Diggs as well. Where is he gonna there's some drama going on with him. So I'm cognizant of it. Tyreek Hill's another one that he's great. He's gonna be around for a couple more years, maybe. So in Dynasty, you want to try and squeeze as much value out of it as you can. I think I'm gonna do Diggs. I'm gonna take Diggs. I'm gonna do Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and hope that they will rekindle the flame. So
we're win now mode.
I am. After that, we have Olave and Hilgo and Yeti. It's back to you.
All right. So the best ADP right now, or the recommended ADP right now, is Bryce Young and Dak Prescott at quarterback. I think right now I'm okay on those quarterbacks. So I'm going to look again for a wide receiver here. We have T. Higgins and Cooper Kupp available. Devontae Smith is also available, but I already have A.J. Brown. So I already have A.J. Brown. Like I said, I'm comfortable with taking T. Higgins as my wide receiver 2 for my team. So going with T here.
Okay. Bryce Young, Dak Prescott go after that. Cooper Kupp, Devontae Smith, Yeti, it is back to you.
All right. So I have 2 wide receivers. we could start looking at running backs here. The top 5 running backs available right now are Austin Eckler, Kenny Walker, ETN, Josh Jacobs, and Najee. Oh, this is a tough situation. Obviously, I need to get a running back at some point. Austin Eckler, 29 years old. Kenny Walker in an interesting situation. All 5 of these guys are kind of iffy for me right now. God.
Just take a kicker.
Right.
Yeah.
I should take a kicker at this point. Honestly, I feel like with my team the way it is right now, I mean we're 4 picks in, right? But I feel like adding Austin Eckler wouldn't be a bad addition to my team just because he's on a top offense. I'm a big believer in Kellen Moore, their new offensive coordinator, and I think Austin Eckler can produce for a couple more years. So I'll take Eckler here.
Okay. 2 tight ends go off the board. Right after that, Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts are both gone, and it's back to me. I was really hoping Kyle Pitts was going to be there, Scotty. I thought that I wasn't going to take him, but I thought maybe he'd fall to you and you'd get all giddy inside.
I probably would take him.
ADP-wise, Kenneth Walker is who I should take here. I am very hesitant to do so. So looking at kind of where I'm at around here, this is kind of gross area. I'm going to take Josh Jacobs because even if he does not play for the Raiders this upcoming year, I think he will find a home and still be usable. So he's still got some tread left on those tires, and I'm okay doing that because I do need a running back one. JSN is who I wanted to take, but I did not, and he just went. So, Scotty, it's to you.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and secure hopefully a solid quarterback 2 for the future and maybe grow into a quarterback 1 in CJ Stroud.
Okay, I like that pick. And then we got Kenneth Walker, Kyler Murray, Drake London, DK are off the board. It's back to you, Scotty. Both your quarterback positions are filled with Burrow and Stroud. You have Waddle and Gibbs as your other players.
Yeah, so far my team's looking like a team that might not be a win now mode. So I am slowly pivoting to more youth and upside going forward. So with that in mind, I think I'm going to go ahead and skip over some of the running backs that would be really useful for me right now. Devontae Adams is appealing, but obviously old, so I'm going to skip over him. I'm going to go ahead and take Travis Etienne and hope that he's useful for the long term.
Okay. Adams goes after that, and I'm back on the clock. Tua's there. Daniel Jones is there. I could, I kind of share the same sentiment in a lot of regards as far as I have a medley of youth right now and kind of age. I'm kind of in that sweet spot, but these running backs are not something I'm necessarily excited in. I'm going to take Daniel Jones here. Tua was the person I should have taken, but I am a little concerned with his brain. I do think he is one hit from potentially being a huge problem if he's ever going to play again. I like Daniel Jones for his rushing upside, so I'm going to go ahead and snag him there. Najee goes after that, and then Tua. Yeti, it's to you.
All right, so the player recommended to me is a player I'm actually going to take here. I'm going to listen to Sleeper, and I'm going to take TJ Hawkinson. And I think he should be a top 3 easy tight end in Dynasty formats, considering that, God, I can't even think of his name. Who's a wide receiver that left the Vikings?
Thielen.
Thielen's no longer there. We saw Hawkinson step into a big role as soon as he got traded to Minnesota. More targets are open. I like Hawkinson to explode in this offense even further, man.
Okay. Stevenson went after that and Pollard, followed by Christian Watson and Nick Chubb. It's back to you, Yeti.
All right. ADP-wise, we're looking at 2 rookie wide receivers in Quentin Johnson and Jordan Addison. Oh, gosh, I don't know. I really like Addison here, but I just took Hawkinson, so I already have a piece of that Minnesota offense. Quarterback, we got Kirk Cousins, another Minnesota piece that I don't want to dabble into too much. Oh boy, this is an interesting situation to be in, boys. You know what? Sorry, Slaps. I'm gonna steal your guy here. I'm gonna take Quentin Johnson. I think he has a lot of upside here at this point in the draft with the Chargers. So
I agree. I think long term, which is what we're looking for in Dynasty, Johnson is, as you know, that I am a big fan of. I think the opportunity is there for him, so which gets me pretty excited. J.K. Dobbins goes after that, and then Jordan Addison putting me on the clock. My ADP, I should be taking Derrick Henry here, but I'm not going to take Derrick Henry here. I'm going to take a shot on Jerry Jeudy. The youth is there. The talent is there. I do believe he's going to be a wide receiver one for the Broncos, and I think the Broncos are going to be in a much better position from just an all-around team perspective than they were last year with Nathaniel Hackett out of there. So I'm going to take Jerry Jeudy and believe in the potential hype. After that is Deebo Samuel. Scotty, it's to you.
Yeah, I am hurting at receiver right now. Obviously got a lot of youth. So
we'll make some trades.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm kind of going for upside here. Not too old of a guy. I think I'm going to go ahead and pick up DJ Moore here. I'm going to bet on that offense improving in a lot of ways. Justin Fields improving in a lot of ways with the new receiver core. DJ Moore's only 26 years old, so he's still got a lot of tread left on those tires. So I'm hoping that he can come in and make an impact right away.
Okay. Following your DJ Moore pick, which I do like. I like that DJ Moore pick quite a bit. I think that he is, we talked about DJ Moore quite a bit on a lot of different episodes. DJ Moore is somebody that is usually has found success. In the last 5 years of his NFL career, he's hit 1,100 yards in 3 of them with different quarterbacks every single year. So I think this is a very stable situation for him to be in. I'm excited for DJ Moore and the Bears offense this year. And so I like that a lot. Williams goes, that being Javonte right after that, and then Jamal Williams right after that, and then Calvin Ridley and Derrick Henry. Scotty, it's back to you.
Yeah, I'm eyeing George Kittle here, and I think if my team was made up a little bit better, where I had some, I had some youth, and then I had some guys who were going to make an impact immediately, and it was confident in, I think I would take George Kittle. But given the makeup of my team here with a lot of young guys, 2 rookies, I'm going to, I think, look further down the board here and try and get some more youth and hopefully compete for a long time. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take Michael Pittman here and hope that offense with a revitalized quarterback situation is going to make some moves.
Okay. George Kittle. It is worth noting, Michael Pittman, this is the last year of his contract, I believe. Is that correct, Eddie? Yeah, so, I mean, he could end up with a different team after this year. Could be better for him, could be worse for him. But Michael Pittman has been the Colts wide receiver 1 for quite a while. So George Kittle goes after that, and it's up to me. Dameon Pierce is who the ADP says to grab. I just don't know. I'm not excited about that. I mean, Dameon Pierce was somebody that was certainly usable. They've kind of brought in a different running back. Damian Harris is down there now to help with that as well. So, and then there's DeAndre Swift. I love wide receivers. I like young, talented wide receivers that are showing promise, and I think Treylon Burks could do that for me. So I think I'm going to take Treylon Burks. He is currently the only wide receiver for the Titans, and so I'm going to go ahead and roll with that. Right after that is DeAndre Swift and Dameon Pierce go. Yeti, it's to you. Your current roster, you only have one quarterback right now, and that's Lamar Jackson. So ADP-wise, Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff are right there. You take either of these guys?
Not yet, my friend. I don't think so. I just want to ask you real quick, how much did my thread with about Burks help you make your decision?
It tickled me. It did tickle me a little bit. I haven't written Burks off at all. I don't think he's the caliber of AJ Brown. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not saying you are thinking that either, but they don't have anybody there. And that to me is enticing. Now, if DeAndre Hopkins actually signs with the Titans, that could get a little bit more interesting for me. I think he falls down a little bit for a fantasy perspective, but where he is currently at, he's in a really great spot. His biggest issue is who's going to play quarterback for him.
And asthma.
Yeah. Asthma will get anybody, though.
Yep. All right, boys. So I don't have a quarterback, but I don't like taking Kirk Cousins here. I'm looking at the running back position, and honestly, Joe Mixon is the top running back available. I know there's a lot of concerns with Joe Mixon, but I think he's one of those guys that is a solid buy low right now. He's still only 26 years old, and he's under contract for a few more years. As the cowbell running back in an explosive offense, I think I'm going to take my odds with Joe Mixon here.
Joey Mixon off the board, followed by Dallas Goedert, Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens, and Scary Terry. I got a question for you, and I'm just gonna pause this draft so that way Yeti doesn't get screwed here on this pick here because we only have 2 minutes. Is Scary Terry the right move over Jahan Dotson, you think? I think I'd rather have Jahan Dotson for dynasty purposes.
I think there's a good shot that Jahan Dotson outperforms Scary Terry this year. And I think certainly for dynasty purposes, I think that's going to be the better move.
I think Scary Terry is one of those guys that consistently gets shit on just because he doesn't do anything flashy except put up consistent wide receiver 2 numbers. I think he's in that ballpark with DJ Moore as far as guys that are like, oh, he puts up stats. Great. He's consistent. But we're going to see Scary Terry in a new offense. Obviously, quarterback situation is a little iffy, right? With Sam Howell projected to start. I do think eventually Brissett's going to be the main guy there, which will help Scary Terry. But I think Scary Terry is the wide receiver 1 to own in that offense. All he does is put up stats consistently.
Sorry. Go ahead. I
No,
didn't mean to interrupt
you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in weeks 13 to 18, after Jahan Dotson came back from injury, he ranked 20th in target share with 24%, 3rd in red zone target share at 50%, and 17th in weighted opportunity, and 13th in yards per route run. His upside is off the charts, and we just don't realize it yet because he wasn't on the field. So I think he's going to come out and make a lot of people sad that they drafted Terry McLaurin over him.
But on the flip side, it's not like Scary Terry shit the bed either.
No. I don't think he's bad. I don't hate him. I just think the upside is worth it with Jahan Dotson with the potential that he has in that offense, which is going to be a crapshoot anyway. So if I'm going to take a receiver on a crapshoot offense, I want to take the one with upside. Especially
like being dynasty that we're drafting right now in a mock draft, none of us took either of these players, so there's no hard feelings at all. But with none of us taking this and this being a dynasty format, would you rather have the youth of Jahan Dotson than Scary Terry?
I guess it depends on how your team is looking right now.
Yeah,
if you want consistent, if you have 2 wide receivers that are kind of risky, that they might get hurt, then I think going with Scary Terry might give you that consistency that you want. But if you want upside, then I think Dotson is the guy to go with.
Okay. I was just curious because I personally am in the Jahan Dotson camp over Scary Terry as well. But I know that a lot of people still love Scary Terry, and Scary Terry is one of those players. I had him in redraft 2 years ago, and he broke me to my core, and I just can't forgive him for it. So that might be part of it.
Sorry, I'm with Calvin Ridley. I get it.
Yeah. Sorry, Yeti, you're on the clock here. Lamar Jackson is still your only quarterback. You have 2 running backs in Eckler and Mixon, and 3 wide receivers in A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, and Johnston with the Chargers. You also have Hawkinson. So what are you doing here?
So I can either lock up another flex position or I can take a quarterback is kind of how I'm thinking right now. Projected quarterbacks, obviously, in this range are still Kirk and Jared Goff. I don't know if I want to pull the trigger yet. We have guys that are available in the flex sorry, I messed up my rankings here. We have Chris Godwin, who I recently just wrote about last week or 2 weeks ago, actually. I think Chris Godwin is one of those guys that is getting overlooked because Baker Mayfield is going to be the quarterback. But I actually think Chris Godwin fits what Baker does pretty well. If you look at what Baker was able to do with his time with the Browns, he did support Jarvis Landry, who plays in the slot. Chris Godwin, also a slot guy, short ADP guy. And I think Chris Godwin is going to get targeted quite a bit in this offense just because they're going to be playing from behind. I think Chris Godwin is a perfect buy low guy, and I'll happily take him right here over guys like Zay Flowers and Jahan Dotson.
Okay. Miles Sanders and Rachaad White are off the board, and it is back to me. I am very wide receiver heavy right now, all things considered. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Jerry Jeudy, and Treylon Burks, both my quarterbacks being Josh Allen and Daniel Jones, my only running back being Josh Jacobs. So, Looking at the list here, we're getting kind of out there. Cam Akers is the first running back on the board, and I don't hate that pick. I think there's still some other wide receivers. Like I said, I get a little stiff for wide receivers, gentlemen, if you cannot tell. Jahan Dotson's still there, of course. Amari Cooper, Hollywood Brown, Dalton Kincaid would be the tight end that's top of the board. I think I'm going to have to do Cam Akers. Right now, he currently is the running back one for the Rams. I need another running back. He's young. Hopefully the drama is over with Cam Akers and the Rams organization, and they have all come to love each other and cherish each other. So that's who I've gone with. Following that is Zay Flowers. Scotty, it's to you. Your team is currently CJ Stroud and Joey B for your quarterbacks. Your wide receivers being Pity City, DJ Moore, and Jalen Waddle, and your running backs being Travis Etienne and Gibbs.
Yeah, if you wouldn't have taken Cam Akers, I would have, because I need to shore up that running back room a little bit with the uncertainty around Gibbs. But you did take him, so I don't have that option. So I'm looking down the line here. I'm looking at running backs. I'd like to secure those, but I'm not real excited about taking anybody this early in the running back room. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to go ahead and draft Jahan Dotson.
Okay. Jahan Dotson's off the board. Dalton Kincaid, Amari Cooper, Isaiah Pacheco, and Christian Kirk. Scotty, it's back to you, buddy.
Oh, back to me already. That's good. All right, so I am still missing a tight end here. I'd still like to get another running back. The Muth is on the board there.
And you gonna get loose with the Muth?
I'm not, because I've got a running back, or I've got a tight end that I've got my eye on that I'm excited about this year that I think is being overlooked quite a bit. So I'm gonna look a little bit further down. In our draft, only going 11 rounds here. Now we're at the point where I can start to take stabs on a few things. And let's look here. I think I'm going to take a stab
that baby.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take a safer pick. I'm going to take Alexander Madison. I'm going to secure that running back room a little bit. Obviously, drafted him a little bit early, but given my situation, I know he's going to get a workload. I know he's going to put up some points. I don't know if it'll be super exciting, but I do think that he's got a lot of upside.
Okay. Not a bad pick. AJ or Aaron Jones goes after that, and it's to me. Now, what I really want to do here is I really want to take Kirk Cousins, because Yeti still needs a quarterback. Quarterbacks are very, very important for Dynasty Superflex leagues. Kirk Cousins does kind of scare me, though, because this is the last year of his contract, but if he plays really well, I think he'll still have a little bit of life left in him. And I could use it for trade bait later on down the road. So I think I'm actually going to take Kirk Cousins here. I'm going to need another quarterback because these quarterbacks are going to go on bye. And so, Kirk Cousins finished as quarterback 9 last year. I think this offense could be even better than it was last year. And he's tied to two really good receivers as well as Hawkinson. So Cousins off the board. Kenny Pickett is off the board. And Jared Goff is off the board. Yeti, you still have one quarterback. Are you going to take one here? You just take one so I can stop saying that, because this gets so exhausting.
I know. This kind of sucks because Jared Goff was my guy. That's who I was going to take with this pick if he was available. So I am proposing a trade to Team 7. No, I'm just kidding. Man, now the next quarterback that I want to take is a little bit further down this list. So I might have to look elsewhere. Looking at my current team, I have 4 wide receivers and 2 running backs that are kind of in interesting positions. Oh boy. You know what? I think because I am much like Slaps, that I love me a good wide receiver. I think that Hollywood Brown is in a great situation to produce pretty good numbers, and looking at my current team, he would be my wide receiver 5. So I would happily take him here this late in the draft.
He was who I was. I love that pick. I was going to take him if I didn't take Kirk Cousins, because I agree with you.
To kind of give me some more depth at wide receiver.
Yeah, I like that pick. After that, Deandre Hopkins goes. He is still currently not on a team, but that will change. And Darren Waller is finally off the board. Zach Charbonnet and Kadarius Toney follow suit. And Yeti, it's back to you, and you still only have one quarterback.
All right. I think I might take a quarterback here, or should I leave it for the next round?
I don't know. You're really exhausting me. You're making me nervous.
You know what? I'm going to make you wait a little longer.
my God.
I'm going to take a guy here who I think has a shit ton of upside, considering Alvin Kamara's situation is kind of uncertain at this point. We don't know if he's going to play the season. Even if he does play the season, he's an aging running back, and I'm going to secure a running back of the future who I truly do believe in, and I'm going to take Kendre Miller, running back for the Saints.
My real Dynasty team is really hoping you are right on that. But right after that, Deontay Johnson goes, and Jordan Love follows suit, and it's back to me. I've got 3 quarterbacks in Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, and Kirk Cousins. I have 4 wide receivers in Traylon Burks, Jerry Jeudy, Stephon Diggs, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I only have 2 running backs in Josh Jacobs and Cam Akers. I still don't have a tight end. And as we know, tight ends are very, very week to week and situational. I do like the Muth, though. I'm a big fan of Pat Freiermuth. He was the wide receiver 2 for the Steelers last year, even though he played the tight end role. And he's young, he's talented, he's still there. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and take him. So I'll finally shore up that tight end position, and I will take the Muth. So after that is Devin. I have been saying it wrong. It's a Kane, or I don't know how.
A-Chain.
A-Chain. I kind of like that. It does sound
I don't know
really
if that's
cooler,
right
so.
either. That's just
A-Chain.
I think if we start saying it, I think enough we'll get the Brainiacs on board, and we'll just call him A-Chain.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. Let's roll with it.
All
All right, so A-Chain goes. Scotty, it's over to you. Currently, your roster is Joey B and CJ Stroud at quarterback. Your running backs are Gibbs, ETN, and Madison. And your wide receivers are Dotson, Pittman, DJ Moore, and Jalen Waddle. What are you doing?
I'm also going to take a third quarterback here, and just for the upside of potentially one of the best teams in the league, maybe, I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers and have him sitting on my bench on the off chance he goes off. I'm going to throw him in, and it's going to be great.
I actually kind of like that because, if CJ Stroud, there's a rookie quarterbacks usually don't hit. So to get someone like Aaron Rodgers, who should be a usable, serviceable quarterback, you could still play him while CJ Stroud figures out how to play in the NFL. So I like that pick for you. Following that, Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara go, and then Keenan Allen, followed by Michael Mayer. It's back to you, Scotty.
Keenan Allen in the 11th round, man, that's a value.
Gross.
I'm going to go ahead and take that tight end that I was telling you about, and Mr. David Njoku.
Oh, buddy.
I'm back on the David Njoku.
Yeah,
train.
baby.
I think,
go.
assuming that Deshaun Watson didn't forget how to play football, David Njoku is going to have a massive year. If you just look at all of the best tight ends in the history of football, recently you have people like Travis Kelce, you have people like Rob Gronkowski, you have these players who are tied to elite quarterbacks. If he can get back to a semblance of an elite quarterback, I think David Njoku is going to benefit heavily. I think he's a steal going as late as he is as far as tight ends are concerned, and I think he's got a lot of upside.
Okay. After Njoku, Mike Williams is gone, and it's over to me. Who I should take via ADP is Geno Smith. But I don't need another quarterback right now because I've already got 3. I think I need another running back, and I know that. So the top running backs right now are James Cook, A.J. Dillon, and David Montgomery. We haven't really talked about David Montgomery a ton. I'm in the camp that I think David Montgomery is going to be in a similar role to what Jamal Williams was last year. I think Gibbs is they're going to share a lot of time, but I think Montgomery could be that goal line back. So I'm interested in him, but currently James Cook, it's his position to lose. So, and he's young, and I'm going to go ahead and just take him. He's tied to a good quarterback. The Bills have shown that they are stated that they want to get a running back that can be both pass heavy and run heavy. So they want to see if James Cook can fill that role. I'm willing to take a shot on him as my RB3. So I've done that, and David Montgomery and James Conner both go after that. Yeti, it's to you. Your current roster, you still do not have a quarterback. You have Lamar Jackson as your only quarterback. Your wide receivers are A.J. Brown, Higgins, Quentin Johnson, Chris Godwin, and Hollywood Brown. Your running backs being Eckler, Mixon, and Miller, and your tight end being Hawkinson. Will you please, for the love of Jesus Christ, take a quarterback?
All right. I'm going to do it. I'm taking a quarterback here, obviously, to fill the rules of this mock draft. So currently, Geno Smith and Trey Lance are the two top guys that are sleeper recommends to me. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Russell Wilson. I think the Broncos team is going to take a big step forward this year under Sean Payton. Obviously, it can't get much worse than last year when they were last, as far as points per game. And I expect Russ to go back to, top 15 numbers. And as my quarterback too, I'll happily take that behind Lamar Jackson. So,
okay, you took Russell Wilson, Evan Ingram, and Mike Evans went after that, and we are completed with our mock draft. Scotty, if you had to roll with this as your dynasty team, would you be happy with this team, or would you not be happy with it?
It kind of falls in how most of my fantasy teams do, which is a lot of upside, a lot of risk. There's a lot of unknowns going on in this team, but I have pretty much all youth. I've got a couple guys that can back me up in case some of these younger guys don't pan out. Ultimately, if I had to give myself an outlook for the season, I think I am not necessarily in a win now mode. So I'm looking just to make smart moves throughout the season and steal wins when I can.
Well, give yourself a letter grade.
I'd give it a B minus because I don't really have
exactly where I was going to put
mine.
I'd
give it a B minus.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you for mine. That's where I see myself as well, as right at a B minus. I think I have a lot of youth, and I think I also have a medley of guys that could kind of get it done now. But for the most part, I have a lot of youth. So I know I'm pretty weak at running back. That's a huge concern for me. And some of these wide receivers have to hit. So much like you, Scotty, I think my quarterbacks are pretty fine. I've got Josh Allen, Jones, and Cousins, so I'm okay there. But my wide receivers, they have a lot of upside, but they're unproven. So that's a lot of concern for me as well. Yeti, how do you feel about your team? I give myself a B minus, like I said.
Well, I'm going to break the slump here, and I'm going to go give myself a B.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm going way above you guys. But no, I give myself a B just because I look at my roster. Obviously, I started with Lamar Jackson, who I'm a big believer in, but I understand the risk that comes with him. I understand that he's missed a good portion of his games the past 2 seasons, so it's just a matter of him staying healthy. I like my wide receiver group a lot. AJ Brown and T Higgins, those are 2 guys that can get it done consistently and put up wide receiver 1 numbers. I love my running backs. They're older, but I think this year my team could be a contender. Obviously, I have some age issues, but I'm not upset with this team. I would roll with it for Dynasty.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that we had the time to do this today, gentlemen. So I appreciate you guys joining us. For all those brainiacs out there that joined us during this draft, we'll post this up over on our Twitter and Instagram pages and let you guys vote as to which team you like the best. And that's it. That's all I got, gentlemen. Is there anything you guys have before we get the hell out of here?
I just want to ask one thing about our mock draft that I thought was kind of interesting. So the Chargers wide receiver room, Quentin Johnson went in the 6th round, who I drafted, but then you had Keenan Allen go in the 11th, so the first pick in the 11th round, and then Mike Williams, he was the 4th pick in the 11th round. Do you guys feel like their ADP should be that far apart as far as Quentin Johnson is the guy to draft 5 rounds earlier, or would you argue that Keenan Allen or Mike Williams in 5 rounds later is worth the pick? Better value, I should say.
I don't know how Scott. I mean, I don't know how Scotty feels about this. I am of the camp that for Dynasty, yeah, I think that's completely fair in my opinion. I think that Quentin Johnson is the guy to own in a Dynasty league, and I'm not surprised that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams fell that far. I think they could have a lot of value this year, but with Dynasty, you have to be looking into the future. You have to be taking those estimated risks and guesses as to what's going to happen in the future. You look at both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, they struggled to stay on the field last year. And I stated last week's episode with Keenan Allen, I think he is a ticking time bomb. You can get value out of him this year, but he's 31 years old. He's getting older. He's shown injury, and even if he doesn't get injured, at 31 years old, like he's not in his prime anymore. Keenan Allen is out of his prime. Will he still have fantasy use this year? Absolutely. Will he have fantasy use next year? Potentially. But we're going to see him start to physically decline as well as, injury aside, he's still going to physically decline as well as Mike Williams. I think Mike Williams, he's a steady wide receiver too. He's a little bit younger than Keenan Allen, but they spent, and by they I mean the Chargers spent a first-round pick on a wide receiver. And I was of the camp in dynasty purposes before the draft. Justin Herbert was a potential sell for me because this offense is shaping up to be kind of scary. I like that they got a wide receiver for him because they needed to, because both of their wide receivers were getting hurt last year, and Josh Palmer was their wide receiver one. There is also concerns with Austin Eckler, and I'm not saying him, but long term. So for dynasty purposes, so like you look at this team as a whole, Quentin Johnston's in a fantastic position to end up being a very dominant wide receiver tied to a good quarterback because he's the only one potentially in this offense. So that's my take on it. I like Quentin Johnston in a dynasty format over both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and I think that's why we see a lot of that disparity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no question that Quentin Johnston should be the one taken first. I think depending on the makeup of your team. So like I said, over and over again, my team is, in this mock draft was very, very youthful. I've got a lot of, I'm basically betting on the future and betting on making good moves during the season. But if I'm on a team that's shaping up to be a win now team, I think I have a good chance to be a contender right now. I wouldn't mind taking Keenan Allen a couple rounds earlier than what he went in this draft because he's a home run threat. The thing is that the Chargers this year have potential to be the team that throws the ball more than any other team in the league. Keenan Allen is the number one wide receiver on that team. If he is able to stay healthy for 14, 15 games, that dude could be a top five, well, maybe not top five, but he's going to be up there in terms of wide receivers. He's a home run threat that you can get later in drafts. So I would take him a little bit earlier than that. Given the makeup of my team, obviously it didn't make sense, but I think for a lot of teams it could make sense to take him a little bit closer to Quentin Johnston. But certainly Johnston is the out and out number one in dynasty drafts.
Do you think, let's just in a redraft format, or even not in a redraft, does Keenan Allen, all injuries and BS, you have to bake that into this as he finishes a top 20 wide receiver this year?
Yeah. Obviously you bake that into it. You're betting on him staying healthy.
No, I understand that. So I'm asking you, do you believe that all things considered, he'll finish as a top 20 wide receiver this year?
Yeah. I would draft him like you would. Yes. But you have to bake it into your strategy as well and plan on the fact that, okay, there's a chance that does not pan out. So you have to take that into account, but ultimately, if he stays healthy, he'll blow that out of the park. So it just depends on your team makeup and how the draft shakes out for you if you're able to take that risk. But if you're able to take that risk, I'm taking it 100%. I'm targeting Keenan Allen in drafts this year, if that answers your question.
Okay. Yeti?
I think Keenan Allen can finish as a top 20 wide receiver.
Do you think he will finish as a top 20 wide receiver?
Will? Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Flip a coin.
I don't. So we'll see at the end of the season how this. We need to keep a spreadsheet of all the things that we've talked about, like on whose side of what, just to kind of see who's right and wrong. So Yeti, I don't know if you've been doing this under the table because it seems like something you would do.
No, honestly.
Okay, we'll start it. We'll start it here with this, and we'll put a doc on there just to kind of see like the things that we think here. So I don't think you will.
Money on it instead. I run to the casino and bet it.
I know. All right. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about with this, or anything else football related?
I guess while we're just talking about players that are kind of interesting, what do you guys think about the Steelers wide receiver room? Because it's very confusing to me why George Pickens seems to be going first. It doesn't make much sense. I don't understand that.
Probably due to age would be my best guess in a dynasty format. Deontay Johnson would be who I would want to own in that wide receiver. For redraft purposes, I'm taking Johnson over Pickens every single time. Like I mentioned earlier, the Muth was actually the wide receiver 2 in terms of like usage in that offense last year. So Pickens he was a rookie last year. He was playing with a rookie quarterback. I expect both Pickett and Pickens to take steps in the right direction, but I still think Johnson finishes higher than Pickett does this year, or than Pickens does this year. So I think more than anything else, it's probably due to youth would be my best guess.
Yeah, I would say it's probably due to Pickens being a second-year guy. And we saw Deontay last season. He had a case of the drops. He dropped a lot of balls that he should have been catching. Oh, excuse me. Even though he did lead the Steelers room with 141 targets, like he wasn't as productive with them as you would hope, right? Like, he finished outside of the wide receiver 2 range last season with that many targets. I think with Pickens, though, what's exciting aside from his youth is the amount of targets that he's seeing in the red zone. He's seeing 20 targets in the red zone, which is great because he's a tall dude who can go up and get the ball, which I think obviously you need to consider that when we're talking about fantasy. The fact that they're I think Pickens is being drafted above Deontay is a stretch, in my opinion. I think I'd rather have Deontay a couple rounds later than Pickens, but I understand why Pickens is going earlier. Do I think Pickens will be a wide receiver 2? No. Do I think Deontay can be? Yes. Based off of his volume, yes.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, well, I appreciate you guys doing this. All the Brainiacs out there that tuned in, greatly appreciate it. If you're not already doing it, hit the subscribe, do all the things, and make sure more than anything else you're following us over on both of our social media pages, Instagram and Twitter. And we also have a website, leatherbrains.com. Go check it out. We are writing articles over there. Find the podcast there. Find all our socials there. So yeah, we have a newsletter. So all you got to do is go to the website, click subscribe, put in your email address, and it hits your inbox with curated custom fantasy and NFL content. Super easy to do. Go do it. And we appreciate everything you guys do to continue to make this fun for us. And we
are
out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.